Right now at the Home Depot, you can stack up on storage solutions that fit your needs. Like heavy-duty shelving, strong enough to hold up to 2,500 pounds per shelf. So it can handle all your lawn and garden tools, your power tools, or your weight set, if that's what you're into. Because the right storage should work for whatever your day throws at it. The Home Depot, how doers get more done.
From LAist and APM, American Public Media, it's This Old House Radio Hour. I'm your host, Jen Largis. On today's show, after divorce, Stacey Lapuk helps individuals redesign their homes.
A lot of people, they're afraid to do too much because they're assuming they're going to find their next partner really soon, and they don't want to do something that partner may not like. But it's really the opposite.
Cartoon acting legend BillyWest, the voice of Ren and Stimpy, tells us what really haunted his North Hollywood home and why he liked it so much.
One night, I was laying in bed and the bed was bouncing up and down, and I looked up and I went, oh, geez, ghosts. Yeah, do more ghost stuff, you know?
This week, we're talking generators with This Old House building engineer Ross Trethewey. All this, plus we're answering your home improvement questions at 877-864-7460. Coming up right after the news. Welcome back to This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. I'm your host, Jen Largis. After a big life change, like a breakup, something interesting can happen in your home. A place that's supposed to feel calm and supportive can start to feel really stuck, like it's quietly holding on to your old chapter. That's where designer Stacey Lapuk steps in. She helps people reshape their home after a breakup or a divorce to match where they're going next instead of where they've been. It's more than adding throw pillows. It's about creating spaces that actually help you feel calmer, more creative, and ready for your next chapter. Stacey, welcome to This Old House Radio Hour.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If somebody's currently going through a breakup or a divorce, how do you approach helping people design a new space for this chapter in their life?
The first thing I do is figure out how they want to feel in the space, right? And I have a comprehensive questionnaire that we review as well. We go through images, things that they're attracted to and not also. And we chat about how they envision themselves, how they want to set themselves forth in this new story of theirs, right? They're sort of redefining who they are. So it's a lot about what do they like to do, or what will they want to do? How are they going to entertain? You know, are children in the picture? Kind of like, what's a day in the life?
What are some of those questions that you ask them that would help you possibly design their space?
A lot of it is using visual aids, because after all, we're moving into a visual space. One of the questions is, are there hotels or resorts or places that they've been where they just felt wonderful? You know, if you walk into a really beautiful environment, you feel uplifted, right? So it's that kind of feeling. So I try to elicit what those experiences have been for them. And then a lot of it is practical. You know, do you work from home? Do you have children coming over? What do you like to do? Do you have hobbies? Things like that, right?
Should this be viewed differently if you're, say, working with like a bachelor or a bachelorette?
Yeah. Men typically, and I hate to generalize, but it really is true, they're used to the woman sort of taking over and creating a home. So they don't like, and they don't have the time, and they don't know where to look for furniture or to decide how they want to live. So they look to me to pull all that together for them, find out what their budget is, and then that's all they need. It's like, okay, you know, go do it. And we get to create these really wonderful spaces. For women, they feel many times that they're supposed to be born with this ability. It can be much more collaborative, which makes it a lot of fun. I tell people that they're creating a three-dimensional painting they get to live in. So how is that going to be? It's not just for guys, a leather sofa, a TV, and a table, right?
Mm-hmm. What are some common misconceptions people have about designing a home that suits this stage of their life?
For a lot of people, they're afraid to do too much because they're assuming they're going to find their next partner really soon, and they don't want to do something that partner may not like. But it's really the opposite, because now's a chance for them to really discover who they are and create their story, create an environment that's going to reflect who they are. And then when the partner does come, they can build from that. So it's not that you are a person waiting to be completed, right? It's you're a person maybe waiting for somebody to turbocharge who you are or integrate things that you may not have considered. And now you have those elements to work with and to create from.
I don't know if purging is the right word, but how much of getting rid of certain things that hold certain memories or things that are painful, how much of it is taking some of those things out of the space so that they can feel a fresh start?
Yeah, that's really important, especially if you're staying in the same home. What I tell people is to take down all of your photographs and artwork, determine which pieces you really want to hold on to. So there may be a table that you both discovered together, but they're happy memories and you want to keep, what's part of your life. You don't want to lose that, right? You're still that person that was created from having that relationship. So you might want to integrate that. And yet there might be something that is like, oh no, we always fought and I was always sitting in that chair when we fought. So, that goes away. It might mean that something gets reupholstered or refinished or the layout is different. And then we can come in with a fresh eye and look at all the artwork and all the photographs and determine what might go where to best reflect who they are now.
What do you think people forget or overlook when they're designing their new home right after a divorce or a breakup?
The first thing is to recognize that they are affected by what they're surrounding themselves with. Recognizing how important those things are, the colors and the proportions and the fabrics. I work with a science called Biophilic design. And what it literally does is aligns your biology with your environment. It's an arm of neuroaesthetics. So your brain on art, basically. And they've determined that there are 15 specific patterns found in nature. And when you incorporate those patterns into your home, into the built environment, because when you are aligned with your environment, you're going to be happy. I always ask when I give talks for people to imagine their happy place. And 99% of the people will name someplace outdoors. So how do you get that feeling inside?
I love that. And I think that's one of the best parts about working with a designer is that I maybe know, a few things that I like, but I don't know how to bring it together as a whole. And so could I maybe pick out a throw pillow I love? Sure. Do I know what else goes with it that maybe I wouldn't pick firsthand, but it would look really great as a complement to the things I do like? I think that's where a designer can come in and sort of round out a space in the right way.
Yeah, don't shy away from what you like. The way I usually start designing a space is I'll start with a rug or artwork, and then we can build things from that. So those can be your structure, right? And then, what makes you you? Create a space that's going to reflect that for yourself and for everybody who comes in.
Well, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your expertise and having this conversation.
Well, thank you for having me.
That was Stacey Lapuk. For more information on Biophilic design, go to staceylapukinteriors.com. Right now, we're taking your calls at 877-864-7460. 877-864-7460. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
How you doing? Oh, this is Gary Fields. I'm calling from Sagamore, Massachusetts.
Gary, what's your question today?
Our house has steel I-beams, and they run through the basement, and we have a drive-under garage. And I've noticed probably in the last couple of years or so, there's spots of rust kind of coming onto the steel I-beams. And I was just kind of wondering the best way to kind of treat that, remove it. I've heard of like rust converter, things like that. And then, the best way to paint it and prime it and all that.
All right. We've got Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, joining us, as well as Mauro Henrique, a painter for the show. Mauro, what do you think is happening here?
Well, the number one question that I always ask when I see something happens like that is there any water leaking from the ceiling that drips into that I-beam?
There isn't, no. In the basement section, we keep dehumidifier going in the summertime when it's real humid, but we can't do that in the garage, obviously. But
hey, Gary, it's Zach here. How old's your house?
It was built in '86. We've been here for almost 10 years now.
I think you're in luck. I think you can let this thing rust and by the time it falls, it's going to be 100 years from now. Steel's
They
so
call
strong.
it a patina.
Yeah.
It's a style.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And that's probably a question I had. Is it a concern,
First thing I would think is it's not a concern. I typically think when you have the type of rust where it's flaking off and you could sort of dig your fingernail off of it and it's actually rusting so much that it's intruding into the thickness of that beam, that now we're compromising structure.
Yeah.
Because it's a relatively new house, which means the beam is probably a little bit oversized for what it needs to be. I know there's, engineers jumping up and down right now in their cars listening to this saying, "The stupid carpenter doesn't know what he's talking about." But what do you think, Mara? Am I barking up to the right tree here?
You always. Was that been painted before, or is down raw metal?
No, it's got like a gray color on it. I don't know if it's a primer or a paint, but it's not raw metal.
Okay. I would say prevention is the number one. If you want to keep that beam nice and clean, and scrape everything that's loose, lightly sand or wire brush or anything that can take all that loose stuff out. And the most important thing is the preparation to prevent this thing to go all the way down the whole, beam that you have in there. It's like Zach said,
Right.
It's part of the structure of the building. And when you talk about structure, a little coat of paint can prevent a lot of damage to it.
Yep.
I think you're right, Marl.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to prevent is it's the spread of it, and as opposed to just painting over it, making sure I remove all the rust before I paint so it doesn't spread.
You know what you should do, Gary? You ever see those videos of like guys making motorcycles and they look really cool making the sparks with the grinder?
Yep.
Yeah, I think you need to be that guy. Get down there with like a flappy wheel and just go to town, get someone to film you so you can get it up on your social media and get to that bare metal, right? You'll feel cool.
Yep.
You'll be getting the job done. And it's just going to make very quick work of it. And you'll see when you're done preparing it, if the prepared spot is, even, then the rust hasn't sort of gotten into the beam. And I would be very scared if I noticed something visual, like an indentation where the rust was. That's a problem. But if it's not like that, I think you're good to go with what Maro's saying.
So Maro, it sounds like he wants to paint this in the end and make it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. What's the right primer and paint that he needs to use for this kind of application?
Once everything is nice and clean, all sanded, all the loose stuff removed, I would definitely use like a metal anti-rust primer. It's also
Boy,
interior.
does that smell good, right, Maro?
I love that, Zach. Like,
Wow.
When I open that primer can, I say, whoa.
Today's a good day, Gary.
Today is a good day. Just keep your windows open. Open the door on a nice day so all the fumes can, move out. And once you got the windows and doors open, you'll be ready to paint. You can top paint with one of those DTM paint, which stands for direct metal paint. But an extra protection, an extra coat of paint goes a long way.
All right, Gary. So you're going to get yourself a grinder, shine that thing up, expose the metal, check to see if there's any problems, then hit it with a coat of primer, some DTM. You'll be out of there by lunchtime.
Then, most important, get some protection gears.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Do that too.
Always.
All right, Gary, thanks for the phone call.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Take care, Gary.
After the break, our experts answer more of your home improvement and DIY questions. Call us at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. Coming up on This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. Stay tuned. This Old House Radio Hour is supported by the Home Depot. Whether you're tackling a kitchen upgrade, organizing your garage, or building out that back deck, it's important to keep your projects on track. Fast, free delivery from the Home Depot makes it easy to get things moving in the right direction. If you're just starting out or you're stuck in the middle, the Home Depot has same-day and next-day delivery, so you can get what you need fast. Maybe you need a tool, more materials, some extra paint and supplies, or a battery to power your way through that project. Whatever you're working on, get fast, free delivery from the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Order select in-stock items by 4 p.m., subject to availability. Welcome back to This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. I'm your host, Jen Largis. Before we get back to your calls, we are opening up the phone lines and playing House Rules. This is a game where we test your knowledge of common DIY and home improvement procedures. No lifelines, no second chances, just you, your instincts, and a shot at glory. Hello, you're on House Rules.
I'm Jason, and I'm calling from Atlanta, Georgia.
So Jason, how handy are you around the house?
I am pretty handy. I watch a lot of This Old House, and we've done a lot of DIY remodels and stuff in the houses we've owned over the years, so I'm pretty handy.
All right, let's put you to the test.
All right.
Here's how it works. I'm going to ask you 2 multiple choice home improvement questions. If you miss the first one, the game is over. If you get it right, you move on to question 2. If you answer both correctly, you win the ultimate prize, a custom voicemail recording from This Old House's very own Richard Trethewey. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
All right, Jason, let's play House Rules. Here's your first question. What is the standard spacing between wall studs in residential construction? Is it A, 24 inches, B, 12 inches, or C, 16 inches?
Yeah, so I have done a lot of DIY, and I've had to space studs. So to be more specific, it's 16 inches on center.
All right. So, Corey, you chose C, 16 inches. To get the right answer, we asked Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, and this was his answer.
The correct answer is C, 16 inches on center. This is the standard for most interior framing in the United States. The reason it's 16 inches on center is because that breaks out to the even size of the sheathing we use. Typically, 4 foot by 8 foot is the sheathing, and 16 inches is divisible by that. That's why if you're going to have different spacing, you'll have 24, which is also divisible by 48.
All right, Jason, that means you're correct. You're moving on to question 2.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, here's your second question. What does xeriscaping mean? Is it A, planting vegetables in rows, B, landscaping that requires little to no irrigation, or C, growing plants in greenhouses? All right, Jason, what's your answer?
So I don't do a lot of landscaping. That's one area I'm not super experienced in the DIY area. But I'm going to do my best to use the context clues, and I'm going to say it was the B, the ones that require zero irrigation, or I think that was it.
So you chose B, landscaping that requires little to no irrigation. To get the right answer, we asked Jen Nawada, a landscape contractor for the show.
The correct answer is B, landscaping that requires little or no irrigation. It uses drought-tolerant plants to conserve water.
And Jason, that means you got both right. Congratulations.
Yay! Woo!
You are this week's House Rules champion. Richard Trethewey is standing by, ready to record your brand new custom voicemail. You just let him know what you wanted to say, and it's all yours. Want to be on House Rules? It's easy. Call our hotline at 877-864-7460 and leave us a message saying, I want to be on House Rules, along with your name, where you're from, your phone number, and a good time to call you back. Or you can send us an email at questions@thisoldhouse.com with that same info. We'd love to have you on the show. Right now, we're taking your calls at 877-864-7460. 877-864-7460. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, this is Melissa Berg calling from Golden Valley, Minnesota.
Hi, Melissa. What's your question today?
So I have drawers in my house that are not, I can't figure out how to get soft close hinges to work on them. They have melamine bottoms and backs, but a molded metal side. And I understand these are called some sort of a box kit. And I researched it and said there could be a way to add an adapter in order to make all the hinges soft close, but I've not been able to find anyone to help.
That's a great question. I have Charlie Silva, a builder for the show, and Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, on the line. Charlie, what do you think?
Well, I'm a little confused on when you were talking about drawers and then you talked about a hinge, which is like a door. So which one?
Forgive me. It's drawers.
Drawers. Okay. Do you know how to take the drawers out? Can you take one out?
Yes. So I pulled them out, and what it is that it's got a molded metal side with one half of the roller attached to the drawer, and then you've got the slide attached in the back of the cabinet and in the front face.
So what I would do is take the drawer, let's say a hardware store that has, wide selection of hinges, drawers, soft close, etc. Bring that to them. It's going to have what size it is because you'll bring the drawer with you. You could even take a picture of your existing unit you have just to have on your phone and go to them and say, can I replace these with a soft close drawer runner? And if the answer, I'm assuming the answer is probably yes, unless it's mounted to the side and it's difficult to, for it to fit. But that's probably the easiest step to do.
Well, I've asked a couple of cabinet makers actually, and they've told me that the only way to do it would be to rebuild each box with a wooden drawer.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Then there's the answer.
And well, it's a very expensive answer for like 27 drawers at about $500 each. Okay. All right.
Well, I just buy a new bureau then.
Melissa, this is Zach. Why are you slamming these drawers so hard all the time?
I'm not. It's just, it does annoy me, especially the one with all the silverware in it. It makes a loud bang every time you shut it.
Oh, it's the kitchen.
Oh, it's a kitchen. All right.
It's everywhere in the entire house. It's the entire house. There's like 27 drawers between the kitchen, bathroom built-ins, downstairs, like bar built-ins. Every drawer in the house has this problem.
I think you're right to try and do all of them or none of them, because I have, when these first came out years ago, I did it at my parents' house. I did all our kitchen drawers, and then we just ended up smashing and breaking all the other drawers in the house because we were used to the kitchen ones being soft close. So you got to do them all.
And actually, there's one other thing. There are companies that just make drawer boxes that are actually cheaper than having a custom one made by a carpenter or a kitchen, cabinet maker or something. So you probably could find them online, truthfully. I know I've had them made before for jobs. I've never looked, for example, online to find somebody local because I have sources. But that might be a way to do it by giving the exact measurements of what you have. You might, but then you're doing a do-it-yourself, or you find someone handy to do it for you.
Yeah, it's such a tricky thing with these molded metal box kits or whatever it's called, the systems.
Mm-hmm.
They're very unique.
Yeah, I think Charlie's onto something, because I remember there was a fellow I knew back in the day in Florida, and he was called the Drawer Dude. And that's all he did. His whole business was just replacing drawers, modifying hardware. And I'm sure he would be much more affordable than if you hired Charlie or myself to do it, because that's all he did day in and day out. I have a feeling you're going to be doing new drawer boxes if you want something that's really functional, because if someone tries to add spacers or something, modify the existing boxes,
right,
I could see it being sort of finicky, hard to adjust, and annoying.
I'm actually trying to look it up right now and see if he's still in business.
We're about to become best friends with the Drawer Dude.
The Drawer Dude.
Right.
Maybe you could move to Florida and then the Drawer Dude could do it.
Yeah.
I think I'll pass on that. I'll stay here in Minnesota.
I did find
don't
some.
blame you.
You should have saw what come up first when I put Drawer Dude in.
The Drawer Dude. Guys, why did I go viral today?
Oh yeah, he's the top search. TheDrawerDude.com.
There you go.
Okay. I did find some really quick looking it up, some cabinet drawers made easy, etc. So just for the heck of it, try that. And just start with one.
Okay.
All right. We thank you for your call.
Well, thank you.
All right. Best of luck to you.
Take care, Melissa.
Bye-bye.
Right now, we've got our experts on the line waiting to answer your questions. Call us at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460, and we'll match you with the right expert. Hello, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, who's calling?
Patricia Culpepper.
And Patricia, where are you calling from?
Johns Creek, Georgia.
And what's your question today?
I have a bathroom that has a culture model countertop, and it's one of three. It's slightly damaged, and I'd like to fix it because I investigated like resurfacing and that sort of thing, but I didn't like the idea of all the chemicals, and so I didn't do that. So I was wondering if you had any suggestions.
Wonderful. Well, we've got Zach Detmore, general contractor for the show, here to help.
Hey, Patricia.
Hi.
I got a question for you. How big is this spot, and what does the imperfection look like specifically?
It almost looks like maybe a knife or something did it, but it's very, very thin and small. And then the others are just like nicks where somebody probably dropped something on the surface.
Like a little chip that would be smaller than like a dime?
Yes.
Gotcha. And this counter basically looks sort of white with variations in color, maybe some veins going through it, something like that?
Basically all white. There's not a lot of variation in color.
So it's pretty much a solid color.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. What a professional would do, Patricia, is they would show up with some pretty heavy-duty chemicals. I know you said you weren't enthused about chemicals, but this epoxy is basically an A and a B, and then they'll have what looks like a tube of toothpaste of maybe a white, maybe a beige, and they'll basically just keep adding that tint, that color into this epoxy until they get pretty close to what you have. And then they'll typically overfill the imperfection so that the epoxy is sitting a little bit higher. And then they'll typically buff or blend it or kind of scrape it away with a sharp knife so it's flush with the surface. And then if it looks good like that, then you leave it. If it looks like there's a variation in sheen, maybe your cultured marble is shinier than the epoxy repair, or the epoxy repair is more shiny than the cultured stone, then if they can, they'll sort of buff out the whole counter to look more uniform in terms of sheen.
Yeah, you're jogging my memory now that this happened when we had our new counters installed. They actually chipped, it was on the corner of it, and they were able to repair it. Very stinky, but they once they buffed it, you can't see it at all. And it's been, I mean, for it to be a corner and be as durable as it's been all these years, we've never had a problem with it.
I think it's totally something you can do, and I would reach out to a countertop fabricator, or if you're a DIY friendly person, you can buy a countertop repair kit, and it comes with like 5 colors of paint and the 2 colors of epoxy, and you can give it a shot yourself if you're feeling artistic.
But that's scary.
So perhaps not.
I think I will contact someone.
Yeah, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised, Patricia. Good luck with it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Right now, our experts are taking your questions. Give us a call at 877-864-7460. That's 877-864-7460. And we'll get your question answered. Hi, you're on This Old House Radio Hour.
Hi, Jen. This is Kimberly Hutchings from Mechanicville, New York.
Oh, Kimberly, thanks for calling. And what's your question today?
Well, started 16 years ago when I bought the house, but it's my porch / garage / stairs. Unfortunately, those are all the same thing attached. It's concrete, the porch. It has like a little brick pony wall surrounding it. And since the day we got here, there was a little separation between the concrete floor and the brick wall. We didn't know what to do with it then. Years go by, it gets worse. We look around the side, the front's falling off, the side is starting to come out because the brick wall also goes down, is also my garage underneath. And that brick had started to come out and concrete block was behind it. And I just look one day and there's a big hole and I could see in the wall and it's like, there's nothing there. And I go, oh, that's not good. It just seemed to look like it disappeared. Like there was no concrete. They didn't fill it with anything. They didn't put any rebar. There's nothing.
Oh, no.
And then you go, and none of this is any good. I don't know anything about masonry. So I really don't know what to do with any of that.
No. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely
not a good
cause for
situation.
concern. To help answer your question, we have our show's Mason, Mark McCullough, and our general contractor, Zach Detmore, joining us now from the show.
Hi, Kimberly.
Hi.
Hey, Kimberly. Boy, am I glad Mark's here for this question.
I was going to say, Zach, I think this is
so am I.
is going to me.
One question, that pony wall, is that holding anything up?
No.
So not another wall on top of that pony wall?
No, no.
So a pony wall, actually it's an expression that is not local to me, but it's a short wall is usually what
you
a
just
pony
sit on
wall
it.
is.
It's basically a height. It's like maybe knee height.
Yes, right.
When are we going to start playing tricks on our listeners and just coming up with wild reasons why these things are called a pony wall?
Well, Jen, if
it comes
if
from
you
the
hang for one more
equestrian
minute, I'm going to
area.
come up with something. Okay, so Kimberly, is next to this wall, is there? Did you say there was a hill?
On the front side, there's a little garden in front of it. I have just hydrangeas planted there right now. On the side, like I said, that begins the wall to the garage, and the whole porch, half of it's actually covered and half of it's open.
Right.
So half of it's like a 3-season porch with windows, and the front part is the one that's really a bad issue. That's open to the water infiltration and rain. And then it goes down, and the entire garage downstairs is a 1-car garage.
So I was about to state the obvious, which is poor design. And yep, when you have poor design in masonry, especially this type of masonry, it's never good because masonry doesn't fall back into place, obviously. And once it starts to go, it really, gravity is not your friend. That's why I was asking about that slope, because if you have any type of erosion under a footing or under a foundation wall, again, gravity, if you're in the wrong spot, is going to start to take over. And then you have a problem that isn't really correctable unless everything gets demoed. So unfortunately, at this point, it almost sounds like everything has to come down and then be rebuilt. Although masonry does have a little give to it, you can stop the problem, which is, to me, water infiltration. And again, it sounds like you're going through the freeze-thaw cycle as well. So when water does get trapped, it turns into ice. And I tell this to people all the time, Mother Nature is much stronger than masonry. So once she wants to rear her nasty head and turn into ice, she will outpower the masonry. And that's exactly what you're seeing in that stucco. That's the time that you're really going to start to see things tumble and the situation get a little worse.
Yeah.
The forgiving part of the masonry, though, is, again, the cause is usually obvious. And to me, water infiltration would be that obvious cause. So what I would do right away, Kimberly, is divert the water, get the water out of the situation, because even if you add a sealer, again, Mother Nature is going to wear that sealer off and you're going to have the same problem. So a Band-Aid at this point is probably, again, just going to buy you time. It sounds like everything does have to come down and go back up. Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any money for that.
Yeah.
But
So that's why I suggest just diverting the water and letting the problem stay dormant until you can get to it. Sorry for that, Kimberly, but don't throw good money after bad type of thing.
Right. Yeah. All right. Thanks for your help.
Okay, Kimberly. Thank you for calling.
All right. Thanks, Kimberly. After the break, BillyWest, the voice behind some of your favorite cartoon characters, shares the story of the haunted house that made him believe in ghosts. That's coming up on This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. Welcome back to This Old House Radio Hour from LAist and APM. I'm your host, Jen Largis. Coming up, Ross Chathui helps us power through the basics of generators without blowing a fuse. But first, we visit the North Hollywood home of BillyWest. From Ren and Stimpy to Futurama and The Simpsons, West has given voice to hundreds of classic characters. But when it came time to share his home with a ghost, it felt like he'd entered one of his own cartoons.
Hey, my name is BillyWest. I'm a cartoon voice guy, and this is my old house. It was 1996, when I had just moved to Los Angeles. I needed to get a house, so I found one in North Hollywood, It was an old Spanish house, a 1926 house. The doorways had arches like the old style, stucco walls and old fixtures. In other words, this house was there before the Oscars, and supposedly silent movie star Lillian Gish lived on my street. I got into the house, I found out a little history that some famous person did live there. It was just an old Hollywood house. This part of town is just up the street from the Hollywood Bowl. Once upon a time, when that house was built, that was considered the suburbs. It was the first house that was ever on that street, and there were silent movie stars, and it was probably somebody important had lived there because they had an elevator built. Once you walked in the front door, to the left was the living room, and at the very far side of the living room was a door. It had been falling apart, but it was the door to the little elevator. That was stuck in place. It was between the floors, so somebody maybe in a wheelchair or something. Who knows, some Hollywood mocker. It was just fascinating to walk in it and look at the velvet carpet on the floor, and there was an old telephone with a rotary dial, and I picked it up, and it had a dial tone. And it had this heavy receiver that would be good for clubbing a home invader. I started to get settled in, and one night I was laying in bed, and the bed was bouncing up and down, and I looked up and I went, oh, geez, ghosts. Yeah, do more ghost stuff. Go flush the toilet or break a window. I was totally into it. Turns out it was an earthquake. But then I had a cleaning person, and she started noticing weird stuff in the house. Things like to the side of the staircase would be rearranged when she came back down. Nobody had done it. The cats couldn't have done it. And then she was talking about how there was a cold spot in the middle of my room, and she was terrified, and it was really weird. So one time, another friend of mine was painting a bedroom, and I says, is there something going on up here, Charlie? And he goes, yeah, something's shooting up and down the hall. I said, it's probably the cats. He said, no, the cats are in here helping me paint. I had a woman come over. She was kind of like a psychic, very striking woman, very dramatic looking. She used to spiritually cleanse houses. She brought us a psychometry device which swings if there's activity, and it flies out of her hand. It gets thrown on the floor. She said, there's something going on in here, and she started burning sage and all that stuff. She was an intuitive, and she was saying, there's 3 spirits in the house. And I said, oh, that's good. The more the merrier. I said, as long as they don't bother the cat, I'm not afraid of the dead. It's the living that scare the hell out of me. She said, it's a man, a woman, and a younger guy. They were grifters. I said, I don't imagine grifters would have had the money to buy this house in 1926. For them to have died and hang out at that house didn't seem possible to me. It just seems like they were probably misplaced spirits. As the legends go, they're people that don't even know they're dead. They're in between worlds and floating around. It went on in my bedroom, and supposedly there was an area of the house on the first floor and second floor. It was in a far corner of the room, and it was in the far corner of the room upstairs too, where there was a lot of activity going on. Maybe I'm the one that's haunted. Maybe the house is fine. When I thought of who on earth could have lived in that house, it might have been a silent movie star, because there was another one that lived on the street named Lillian Gish. And I tried to imagine who it might have been. Gloria Swanson was a big star in silent pictures, and she crossed over to talkies. There was a movie called Sunset Boulevard. It was the story of Norma Desmond, this cracked actress, this old recluse. She was just nutty, and I thought of Norma Desmond in my house, or Gloria Swanson, and there was a line from the movie Sunset Boulevard where she walked out of the house. The cops were there to arrest her for murder of a journalist who was half courting her just so he could have something to do and a story to write. She wound up shooting him. He's laying in the pool, floating face down in the front pool, and then the cops came, and there's a crowd of reporters, and door opens, and there's lights on her, and she's delusional. She thinks it's like a Hollywood premiere, and she went, all right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. That was the beauty of living right there. Warner Brothers, Disney, Universal, they were all there. The person that we bought the house from, I remember her last name, and then I found out later on that a man with that last name, who was a writer, lived in that house. They lived there for a while before they got divorced. I found out the guy's name totally by accident. I did the last session at Hanna-Barbera, which was also right up the street, before they closed the place down. We were doing this animated film called Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Yikes! It's a regular zombie jamboree!
And I did Shaggy. Like, wow, this place is full of ghosts. So anyway, this guy, his name was Jack Raymond or something like that. And my brother noticed his name in credits for TV shows. He had written a ton of Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Before they closed the place down, they said, listen, if you want to grab anything you want and run out the door with it. So I grabbed a Rolodex, and in it were the names of all the biggest cartoon performers and their home addresses and their phone numbers and what characters they did. They'd know to be able to call them. Guys like Dawes Butler. He was the voice of Yogi Bear, and you gotta admit, I'm smarter than the average bear. Don Messick was Boo Boo Bear, and he played the ranger. Hello, what? There's a bear in your bathtub? And it dawned on me, since this Rolodex was from the early 60s, and this guy lived in my house, I said it's quite possible that all the people that I'm looking at were in my house at one point. If he'd had a get-together or a party, he would have invited all of them. I don't think they were haunting the house because they were good people. They're welcome to come out to the suburbs and visit my house because sometimes I miss them.
That was BillyWest. Season 13 of Futurama will be available to stream on Hulu starting September 15th. When it comes to home improvement, making a major purchase isn't just about the price. It's about knowing exactly what you're buying. Every category and product comes with its own learning curve, and we're here to help you navigate it. We'll break down the terminology, walk you through the key features, and point out what to watch for. So when it's time to make that big purchase, you'll know exactly what works best for you. Joining us to go over the best generators for your home is Ross Trethewey, a building engineer for This Old House. Hi, Ross.
Hey, Jen.
So let's get a lay of the land. What kind of generators can you choose from?
When it comes to generators, there's generally two different categories. The first one being portable generators and the other one being stationary generators. And so with portable generators, these are ones that you would kind of roll out of your garage or bring out of the basement, set them out outside 20 feet away from your house. And they typically are gasoline fired. You fill them with gasoline. And they plug in to typically a manual transfer switch. So there's a switch that manually gets activated. They have either an electronic start or a pull chain start. And it's going to be much more manual, but these are great for dealing with a power outage in a house for your critical loads of the house, right? So to run maybe your heating system, maybe to run a refrigerator, maybe to run some lights, so that's your kind of traditional portable generator setup. Stationary generators are, have a kind of a different animal to them, and those are fixed in place. Typically, they run on natural gas or propane, and those can be sized for modest loads of the house all the way up to a whole house backup power. Those aren't portable, of course. Those are fixed. They're usually mounted onto a concrete pad. They typically require, a professional to get them installed right. And with those, typically they have an automatic transfer switch. So it means that the system is smart enough to know if there's a loss of grid power, it automatically turns on the generator, flips the transfer switch, and then the electricity flows from the generator to the house.
So when you're hooking up a portable generator, is it always going to be whatever you want to plug in, plugs directly into the generator? Or can that ever be connected to, like you said, directly to the house in some way? And does that require an electrician?
In the portable sense, they kind of have two different flavors. One being ones that just run power extension cords from, sometimes they have USB chargers. Sometimes they have, regular 120 volt receptacles. Sometimes they have some 2-pole 30s and 2-pole 50s for larger appliances, depending on the size. But they also have the ones that plug into your house, right? So that you can have basically an electrical socket on the side of your house that the generator plugs into, and then a manual transfer switch in the basement typically. And then you're allowing the house to accept the portable generator backup power. That often is not a DIY project. It often requires an electrician to provide the movement of the panels from your existing electrical panel to a new electrical panel that would be powered off of that generator in the event of a power outage.
And let's talk about those fuel sources again. Which are the most common and what are sort of the benefits and pros and cons of each?
Your portable generators, the ones that have wheels that you're going to kind of move around, those are going to be often powered by gasoline. So it's just regular gas, like you're filling up your car, so to speak. That same gasoline is what's powering up the generator. They do have some that are diesel and some other types of liquid fuel sources, but most of them in the residential market are going to be gasoline fed. Where stationary generators come into play, those are going to be powered by natural gas or by propane. Those ones are going to be hard piped to your stationary generators at the side of your house. There are some manufacturers that make generators that can be fed off of multiple fuel sources. So you can get ones, for example, that are gasoline powered and as well as propane or natural gas fired. You can also get ones that are gasoline fired that have a battery backup, so they can have the ability to use the battery and the gasoline. So yeah, there's a variety of different manufacturers that offer those.
So now that we've covered the types of generators and fuel sources, how can listeners determine maybe like what the ideal size is to suit their needs?
Yeah, so the best way to do that is to create a load list.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do on projects is we figure out, okay, what are the loads of this building that need to be powered in a backup power condition? So if you lost your utility grid, what needs to be backed up? So this is going to be sump pumps. This is going to be your critical lighting. This is going to be your, a couple of receptacle plugs. It's going to be your refrigerator. It's going to be your heating system. You're going to identify what are those critical loads that you want to have backed up in a power outage. Then when that list is created, you're going to know what you need to calculate what the running load amps are and what the startup load amps are, or what the surge is. Mm-hmm. Because when you have a motor load, what it uses when it's running is very different for a power amount than when it's starting up. Mm-hmm. So motor loads sometimes, take 3 to 4 times the inrush current, when it first turns on. So to turn that motor for that first time, for the first couple of milliseconds there, it consumes a lot of power to do that. So you'll stall your generator if you undersize your generator and you put it onto a bigger motor load. So it's key to get that kind of the balance of that correct. But once you assemble that load list, you know what appliance that you're trying to power, and you know what their running load amps are and the starting load amps are, then you can start to figure out what size generator do you need once that's compiled together.
What's an example of an appliance that has that surge at the beginning and then a different running wattage?
Any motor load. So think about motors. So that would be a well pump. Okay. That would have a very large inrush. That could be a AC compressor. Mm-hmm. So your air conditioning unit has a large compressor in it. So that is another motor load.
Do you have any safety tips for people who are getting a generator that's maybe not professionally installed? They're looking to plug things into it. What things can go wrong?
From a safety, it's all about just getting the exhaust fumes away from the house. If it's a portable generator, you have to get it at least 20 feet away from the house. And the exhaust should be blowing away from the house. Okay. Right? Because there's an intake side and an exhaust side of those generators. Make sure the exhaust is blowing away from the house, get it far away from the house, because there's a risk of carbon monoxide poisoning, right? So there's a safety risk here. So you got to get that stuff, handled properly. Too often people start them in their garages and leave the door open. Yeah, I'm like, no, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Is there ever such a thing as once the power comes back on, is there anything that you have to do to make sure that you're not in some way backfeeding? I'm sure this is all part of the manual, but.
Yeah, so for the automatic systems with the automatic transfer switches, stationary generators, there's nothing really you need to do, mm-hmm. right? Those are automatic because they can sense the voltage at the grid. Once the grid comes back on, the automatic transfer switch will switch back. They'll turn the generator off, and it's very seamless. With portable generators, there is a concern there for sure. And that's why you have that manual transfer switch that separates your house panel from your critical load panel or your generator panel. So when the power comes back on, there is a sequence that needs to be followed to switch it back to utility power. That's oftentimes is powering down the generator, shutting that system down, and then switching back the transfer switch manually back to utility grid power. And doing that in the right order So you don't run the risk of having utility power and the generator power backfeeding one another, and then bad things would happen there.
So what are some other things that our listeners should keep in mind when they're purchasing a generator?
One would be portable versus stationary. You try to figure out which one you're looking for there. How manual versus how automatic do you want the systems to be? Getting the sizing right so that you're handling your critical loads of that building, and maybe sizing it so that you can have some future load capabilities.
Yeah.
Right? I would say that if you're going to size conservatively, meaning pick the larger size versus the smaller size, that would give you some of that kind of extra wiggle room, especially for motor loads starting up. If price is not an issue, I would say go with the inverter generators. Those are, to me, are going to be much better. They're far quieter. They're much more fuel efficient. The fuel efficiency is a big one, right? Like if you're filling up a gasoline tank inside these generators with the inverter style, you might get 2 times or 3 times the amount of life out of that gasoline tank than a traditional one. Because a traditional portable generator is on at 100% and it stays at 100%. It doesn't have speed control. Yep. Where the inverter style throttles, it has variable speed. So it can ramp the engine up or ramp the engine down based on what's calling. Depending on how much draw you have, you could have 2, 3, 4x the life on the same volume of gasoline on an inverter generator compared to a traditional generator.
Ross, this is incredible information. We appreciate your expertise here.
Thanks, Jen.
If you need help with something in your home, call This Old House Radio Hour's home repair hotline. That's 877-864-7460 so we can help you out. We're nearly at the end of the show, which means it's time for the Simple Fix.
Hey Jen, it's Zach Detmore, a general contractor for the show, and this is my Simple Fix. Do you ever need a level in a pinch and you don't have one? My Simple Fix is using a container of water. Ideally something like a mason jar with some markings on it. Once you get that water filled up to the neck of the jar and you put it on a surface, if it's even around the inside of the jar, then you know you're on a level surface.
We'll see you next week on This Old House Radio Hour. Our show is distributed by and co-produced by LAist Studios and APM, American Public Media. This Old House Radio Hour was created and produced by Ember 20. Listen to new episodes of the podcast every Tuesday on your app of choice. You can follow This Old House on all the socials at This Old House, all one word. We'll see you next week.